Guys, welcome back to my channel. It's your fat sis. It's another installment of I know interesting people, and to my right, I'm sitting here with Wanelisa Xaba, and you know how we do it here on I know interesting people. We're gonna do a 20-second intro. We're gonna time her, and sis needs to stay in time. If she doesn't stay in time, we are kicking her off the show. I'm kidding, we're not. Okay, I'm going to start the timer. You have 20 seconds to tell us who you are, what you're about, and why are you on it. I know interesting people, if you know why.
I guess I'm and why I know interesting people, because I'm an interesting person.
Yes.
No, I'm joking. So my name is Wanelisa, and I'm from Cape Town, Kwalanga, and I am a PhD student at the University of the Western Cape. And my research focuses on... Is that 20 seconds?
Yes.
You're joking! What? Crazy.
I'm telling you, sis, your 20 seconds is over. But you know how we do it here, guys. She can continue introducing herself because, you know, we're nice people and we love our interesting people, right? Continue, please.
Yes, so my research focuses on black students' experiences in higher education, and my PhD proposal talks about, or rather we examine the challenges that forced young people to not finish their degrees, as the dropouts, people will say. So I'm exploring that for my PhD. For my master's, I was looking at blackness and how university students experience, express, and come to blackness.
And in the university campus?
Yes.
Wow.
In two university campuses.
Oh,
yeah,
lovely.
in Cape Town.
That is you see why I love her? You see why I love her, guys? Interesting. So we're just going to have a conversation around the work that Wanelisa does. How I got to know Wanelisa was on Facebook. I saw this fierce character speaking her mind, and I was like, yes, you are speaking the things that I can't say, a lot of us can't say, and you have the guts to say them, and I want to follow you, and I want to like every status that you're saying and posting. So I don't know, which social media are you comfortable with that people can see you on?
I'm on Facebook as Wanelisa Xaba.
Yeah.
I'm on Twitter as at Wanelisa Xaba.
Yeah.
The handle that I have now is Winnie's Foot Soldier.
Yeah.
And I am on Instagram as Rich Bitch Bruja. And but I'm gonna deactivate my social media accounts because I'm detoxing. I'm doing a social media detox,
okay, cool.
Which is very important for the mental health.
Yeah.
So that's where you can find me at the moment.
Okay,
but,
cool.
And when I'm back,
you'll see. Yeah. They'll get to see this fierceness that I'm talking about. This. I don't know. It's honesty. It's honesty that we need as black people to have conversations and look at ourselves and say, hey, here's a mirror. Here's what's going on. You need to look at that. Yeah. Because we keep skirting issues, right?
Yeah.
We keep trying to run away from issues, and at some point we need to address them.
Yeah.
So I just have a few questions that I want to ask you and get into, and let's get going. You know, let's get into this conversation, you and I, about you. Yeah. You know what I'm saying?
And I'm laughing because actually you're talking about fierceness. And I'm just imagining people watching the video or the episode and just seeing this person who's all smiles with braces and I'm thinking, what? Which one? Where? How?
Go on Facebook.
For the why? I hear you though.
My first question that I have here, Wanelisa, is what is it like being a black woman in university academia?
It's difficult being a black woman in academia, but it's also difficult being a black queer woman in academia. Being a black woman who comes from the township, who lives in the township, has to navigate academia, which is middle class spaces. And obviously academia is just completely anti-black and pro-white supremacist, pro-neoliberal capitalist. And so it's
You're throwing terms, girl.
Yes.
You're throwing terms at us that we like what we hear.
Yes, I mean, and we can deconstruct it. We can talk a little bit more about what I mean when I say that. But it's a hostile space. Like, just generally, a lot of young students who sometimes I lecture are affronted by the fact that we teach them black, feminist theory because they haven't really necessarily come across black feminist theory, black people writing, black intellectuals, and so when they see it from the first time, they're like, whoa, this is biased, and they get touched, right? Because the point is that in academia, black thought and black intellect and our histories of political thought, feminist thought have been sidelined, and so it's a difficult place to be. But I navigated, and I tried very hard for myself to use accessible language when I'm writing, even within the academic context. Even though people look down on me because I'm not sophisticated sometimes, but I know who I'm writing for.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So you're not sophisticated in your writing.
Yeah.
Is that what they look down on?
I mean, in academia, it's all about jargon.
Yeah.
So it's all about jargon, and so what happens is people want to use the biggest words.
Exactly.
When they can say something like, then they can say something so simple. And people want to use, and they want to alienate people.
That's my next segue now. I didn't write this question now that you're speaking. I want to also, language is so important, Wanelisa. Why is academic language so difficult? How do you explain to a grandmother in the rural areas what cisgender, cis hetero, this and that, neoliberalism, all of the, I can't even pronounce it, all of these terms. How do you explain to a grandmother who's going to have a child going to university what kind of environment the university is without getting into jargon? Because we both know she doesn't understand what you're saying, but saying it in a way that she will understand.
Yeah, and you know what? To be honest, I don't want to be disingenuous. A lot of academic work is not meant for our grandmothers, right? It's meant for us and our friends, and we can intellectually wank on each other. Yeah. That's the reality of it. But so when I kind of teach, decolonial black feminist theory, I locate feminism within our bodies, right? So it's not something that's a theory that you necessarily have to learn, but it's something that you embody, something that you've received from your mom and your grandmother and the grandmother and the grandmother, and something that's located within your DNA, within your cells, because these things are passed on and passed on and passed on, and we socialize into certain ways as black women, as black people, as black queer people, to socialize, to be in community with each other.
Yes.
So I think, when we talk about feminism, when we talk about, neoliberal capitalism, we talk about, we can explain these things in ways in which our grandmothers can understand.
Yeah.
For example, my mother, right? My dad, who I love and rest in peace, right? He was my dad, but he was trash, right?
Yes.
But at the same time, he was my dad. I love him. He was a good person, but he was trash to my mom. And so what happened was my mom had given birth to my older sister, and my dad cheated on my mom while she was an infant, newly born. Yeah. So what my mom did was she went and burned his house down with all his clothes and whatever. Yeah. And so growing up, I had always heard this from my dad's family, and it was a shame. But when I started looking at my mom's life through a feminist lens, I thought, this is a kind of getting your vengeance back from someone who's treating you with violence. Violence is cheating is violence. Yeah. It's a very violent act. And so for someone to say, okay, you have enacted violence on me and you've dishonored me, I'm going to retaliate with violence. That's very ideological. That's very revolutionary. In a way, we don't read our mothers and our grandmothers as feminists and as people who embody feminist principles. They might not say they're feminists, but they embody feminist principles. And even African women have long histories of like naked protest and like against the colonial regimes, but even before that. So it's only just locating the theory within our lived experiences, right?
That's wow, thanks for that. As you're saying, I'm thinking now, and I'm also trying to bring feminism into my own life, into the women that are in my life. And I don't know if I've said this to anyone that knows me, that watches this channel, but one woman who I think is fiercely feminist in my life is my aunt, my mother's older sister. She is fiercely feminist without even saying she's a feminist, because she believes so much in her womanhood, in her personhood, in looking out for herself, in reinventing herself, in living and expressing the highest version of herself, regardless of what society and the black community say she should be. My aunt learned how to drive in her 40s. And she said, I want a car, and she got a car. And she drove herself around. She was tired of my uncles asking my uncles to drive her around. She was like, well, she didn't say fuck you, but she could have said it, you know what I'm saying? I want to do this myself. And that's fiercely feminist, the way she, just carries herself to say, this is what I want and this is what I want to do. And she's like, I want a tattoo, I want to be a biker. If my aunt had money and she had access to money, she would have those things. She would be that aunt that was living her life the way she wanted to live it. Living her best life. And I look up to her so much that even when I was learning to drive, I was like, and I'm thinking, oh my God, this is such a difficult thing. I'm like, babes, you have an aunt who learned how to drive in her 40s. You know what I'm saying? And how she always, you should see my aunt on it. So when speaking about relationships, she's like, girl, you have one life. Take care of you. Exactly. Take care of you. My aunt has a story. I don't know if I can share this, but I will for purposes of this conversation. My aunt has a story that when my cousin's dad, right? He was also, a lot of our fathers are trash, right? He was also the trashy type. Like a lot of our fathers are trash. And he would go and be gone for hours and not say where he was at, and look kind of dodgy and suspicious. So my aunt would leave the house when he comes in. My aunt leaves and she's going around the corner to her friend's house to go chill for like 3 hours without even saying where I'm going. And then when she comes back, she goes into the toilet, because they were in Alex, and in Alex they have outside toilets. She goes into the toilet, takes off her panties and bra, carries them in her hand, walks into the house and throws them on the bed and goes to bed. And what are you gonna say? What are you gonna say to that? And she's like, I have done nothing. I know I've done nothing with no one, but I want to show him that, listen, whatever game you're playing, I can play. And I'm sitting here and I'm like, that is feminist. That is, you are standing up for yourself. You know what I'm saying? And when you say that, bring it into our lives. Bring it into your life. Who are the women in your life who are feminists? And I'm like, wow. All of us can say something about how our grandmothers were feminists, even though they've never uttered the word in their lives.
Absolutely.
Anyway, let's go on with this conversation. My next question to you was going to be, I personally have I like the Vice Chancellor of Cape Town, of UCT. I want to know what your thoughts are on the Vice Chancellor of UCT. This is a tricky question for me to ask, because as a person that likes her, you might not, and that's not a problem. You may have your own issues, but one would assume or even think that, okay, no, she's a feminist, she's all about women, and seeing a black woman as a vice chancellor, that should mean something to her or not. But those are my question is, what are your thoughts on her as a vice chancellor and her as a person, if you know her or whatever?
I don't know her personally.
Okay.
I've seen her on flights a couple of times, but I'm always too scared to
approach her.
Hi. Always, because also we've had a scuffle on Twitter.
Okay.
So I'm always I don't know if I should say hi.
Yeah.
Because they had to write a whole the university had to write a whole statement because of like some of the tweets that I was tweeting.
Oh.
So it was a huge thing. So I'm like, I don't know her personally.
Yeah.
However, I will say this.
Yes.
I will say there's a tendency within a white supremacist organization, right, to fuck up for years, for centuries, right?
Yeah.
And then when they are in the hot seat, they bring in a black woman, right, to clean up the mess, right? And for me, I have a problem with that because what kind of mental strain does it bring on the black body who's in that institution, who's having to rectify centuries of like white coloniality, white supremacy, patriarchy at the University of Cape Town? So I think that for myself, it's unfair. White people need to be doing they need to be doing the stuff. They need to be
cleaning up themselves,
cleaning up their own messes. Exactly, cleaning up their own messes. You know, and having to deal with the mental health issues that come with undoing so much like spiritually dark systems of oppression within institutions. And I will also say this, and UCT it's almost like a pipeline of where black students come in and they are pumped with like neoliberalism and capitalist tendencies and ideologies and patriarchy and white supremacist ideologies, right? The ways of thinking about the world. And at the end, you have a product that you have a black body that is a shell, right? And so what happens is the institution clearly, structurally is designed to create black slaves who are going to then go back into society and perpetuate the things that enslaved our grandfathers and our grandmothers, right? And so I think, I don't know, but this is my personal opinion, I think that it doesn't help having a black woman, a black man, a black queer woman, a black queer man, a trans woman, a trans black man, a non-binary black person in the institution, because the institution, the way it's run, is gonna keep on doing what it's doing, right? So what happens is that you just become like a blackface, right? And so that is my opinion of how institutions like UCT are designed. Not to say that she has not made any impact. I think that she has made an impact, but I think the situation is much broader than her, and I think that she will not be able to restructure or decolonize UCC as an individual. She's just, you know, at the top, but the people who fund UCT and the people who administrate UCT in management is a white right wing, like white people, right? And so that's my opinion.
Wow, it was a mouthful of opinion. But good thing, when you're busy saying, you know, you see, guys, when you have conversations with people like this and they say things like this, you think back to what you were thinking. Like, for instance, when you're saying that, I saw on social media that Phuthi Mahanyele has been appointed as CEO of Naspers. And I was thinking the exact same thing. I'm like, no, why? Why are they putting a black woman to go run that? Do you know the crap that goes on at Naspers? Naspers, if you don't know, owns Abu Media 24 and all these media companies, and people that work there, black people that work there, will tell you in this day and age there are still emails that run around in Afrikaans, and people don't understand Afrikaans, and there's always that racial tension within the companies that Naspers owns. And now you're going to put this woman, and I'm definitely sure the black people who are working there are going to expect her to firstly put an end to that type of operation or aggression of people sending emails in Afrikaans when they know very well that not everybody receiving that email understands what you're saying, you know, to push an agenda or whatever in the workplace. So I'm like, that's a bit too much to expect one person to come in and change a culture. The people who previously who were CEOs, which were white men, need to have fixed that themselves before giving it over to her, you know? I agree. And
what it does is it creates black on black violence, right? Because, like, as for instance, I have some disappointments about the Vice Chancellor of the University of Cape Town. I have personal disappointments in which then it creates me as a black woman and another black woman in a space where I'm in tension with this incredibly brilliant black woman, right? And so for us at UCT, when it was Fees Must Fall, what we used to do was say to the university is don't bring, when we're coming into negotiations or when we protesting, don't bring people of color to come and appease us or to negotiate us.
Yes.
We want to speak to white people because the people who need to feel that energy, right? And you know the rage of white people. We don't want to exercise that on another black body.
And did you speak to the white people?
I mean, we refuse to speak to
the black people. We're going to talk about Fees Must Fall. a little bit.
Tiny bit.
A tiny little bit, but no.
Yeah.
I'm seeing this conversation. It's gonna be a lengthy one, and I'm not going to even cut it or whatever. I'm going to put it up as it is, and we're at the 22-minute mark. We're almost going to be where the camera cuts off. We're going to go on. I am loving this conversation with Wanelisa. We need to have these conversations, and if it's an hour long, I'll try to keep it under an hour, okay?
Yeah.
All right, it's going to stay under an hour.
Yeah.
So, through your studies, what are the experiences of black students, and what's your plan on us having access to your work?
Look, the experiences of black students are vast. And I can tell you that black students are going through a tough time in university. And it all boils down to, actually, at the end of the day, mental health and how they leave these institutions. They might leave with degrees, but where is the spiritual, emotional, and mental health at, right? One of the things that I like to highlight in my research is to say, black parents need to know what kind of institutions they're sending their children into. And they need to know that the institutions are hostile, the institutions are anti-black, they're anti-queer, they're anti-women, right? And simply by sending a child physically into university is not enough. Like, what support structure do you give black students once they're in university? Because a lot of the rhetoric right now with black students is our parents will ask, what are you stressed about? You reading books, you're in university, why are you stressed? How can you be stressed? No, like, real life is stressful. But the lack of support and the lack of social capital, there's a difference between a young person who is coming from a private school. Both their parents are professors or they're doctors, or they know how to use the professionals. They know how to use the computer. They have a library at home. They're English speaking. Then someone from Kualanga, who is the first person to go to university, doesn't even know what the experience is going to be like. No one knows what they're doing in university. They just know that they need to come back and feed us, and so I think that's very important to speak to black parents. Another thing that is important, and I highlight this, is that our young people are carrying the burden of the nation. You have 19-year-olds, 20-year-olds who are tasked with the task of liberating their families and liberating their communities. This is something that the ANC should have done, not 20-year-olds, 19-year-olds, right? And so when young people are writing a test, and the test is not to pass, but it's the test that determines the bread of the family, that's difficult. That's a lot of pressure. That's a lot of pressure for young people's mental health as well. So it's very, I think I have so many little nuggets in which we need to deconstruct, like blackness, because the very skin that you're in alienates you in the university space. And so you come in and your skin, your body is loaded with meaning. People are putting meaning onto you and isolating you or discriminating because of the color of your skin. And then we dig deeper into social capital. Then we dig deeper into how the lack of decolonization in South Africa affects how young people navigate the university space, right? Because as much as you can say, apartheid was abolished, I I think
Okay.
legislated, legal apartheid was abolished, but we're
Yes.
still living in apartheid right now.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, no,
It's
I
still-
agree. Legal apartheid was
so-
abolished, but we're still living. Yeah, I totally agree. I agree 100%. So tell me, how can we access this work
Well,
that you're doing?
yeah, you know, I mean, it's academia. It's not necessarily accessible. As we chatted earlier on, I am trying to get a YouTube channel going where I specifically just talk about my research. I also do go and do talks, and people invite me, and I speak at various levels, whether it's at university, or whether it's at NGOs, or with like just people who are organizing themselves. And so I am available, like if you want me to come and speak to this on your campus or whatever, I'm always very available to come speak. And
I thank you. I am one person. I believe very much in the book. I'm a reader. I'm an avid reader. I am very much a believer of literary content, because years after authors have died, we're still reading their work.
Yes.
So let me throw this at you. What do you think about putting it in a book?
Yes.
Writing a book and putting it in a book and putting it out there
Yes.
for people to consume.
Yes, I am in the process of doing, not publishing, but sourcing a publisher.
Oh, okay, cool.
And I was talking to a couple of people who, they might do it, they might not do it. But I mean, I'm also very specific about how I want to publish the book. I don't want to. It was a thesis. It was 55,000 words. It was, academic jargon. But the way in which I want to write the book is to have a conversation between a black parent, myself as a researcher, and a black student, and other black students as well, because I think that's very, very important. And to just have that conversation amongst ourselves around blackness and the university space, and even the fact that the university space is not necessarily the place in which we're going to liberate our country. It's a microcosm, because the majority of young black people in South Africa, in our townships, in our rural areas, in our peri-urban areas, in our poor communities, are not at UCT. They're not at it.
True.
You know what I'm saying? And so there's work that needs to be done outside of that as well.
True.
So I mean, I hope I answered that question.
Yeah, no, you did. Thank you. By the way, guys, let me just get into the weirdness of how we're sitting, because I can see it on the monitor. We're in a hotel room. She is visiting Joburg for the weekend. So we're in her hotel room, and for the perfect lighting, this is how we have to sit. And your fave fat sis is trying to serve you all the time. So I prefer her as a guest to be in the forefront, to have a conversation with you guys, and I'm in the back here sitting and throwing the questions. So that is why we're sitting in this
like
weird.
this.
She's literally on the bed and I'm on the chair. That's why we're at different levels.
Yeah.
Figuratively and literally. Listen, guys, I look up to Wanelisa.
Thank you.
I look up to her, and she deserves this throne that she is sitting on, because she is needed. We need her words. We need her work. We need her to hold the mirror to us, so that we can look at ourselves and fix ourselves as a community and individually. We've gone through a lot of trauma as a people. So we need you.
I appreciate that.
We need you. Anyway, yes, this fits into my next question. I think the word radical describes you. What do you call yourself? Do you see yourself as radical? I think you're radical in what you're doing, because you say things we're afraid to say, and you put them as they are, and they sometimes come across as radical and harsh and whatever. But in order, I don't know, there's a quote or whatever where someone says, in order for you to get across, you must look mad and you must sound mad in order for you for people to hear you, because they don't understand what you're saying. It will look mad and sound mad. So, but for me, more than mad or whatever, the word that I would describe you as is radical. What do you describe yourself as?
I mean, the term radical has shifted to mean something that people will say, I'm more radical. It's a way of defining yourself in relation to someone who's inferior or whose politics are inferior or less radical. So in that sense, I don't like to use the word radical, but in the sense of when we talk about being radical, Angela Davis simply says it's someone who grasps oppression by the root.
Yes.
Right? And if we're talking about that, then I am comfortable with calling myself radical, because I think decolonial talk, black consciousness, black feminism, decolonial feminism is something that is very, very invested in grabbing oppressions and systems of oppression that dehumanize us by the root, to examine them at the root, instead of talking about rainbow nations and social cohesions and Mandelaisms. You know, we talk about coloniality.
Yeah.
So in that sense,
Yeah. Okay. Cool. My next question, and you know, guys, she's dropping terms. I'm also like, ooh, decolonial feminism. What's that? Now I want to go look it up. And, you know, we're gonna go hours and hours if we ask you to unpack it, but it sort of makes sense in how you put it in your answers.
Because it's easy. Like South Africa was colonized. And you can't uncolonize a country that it's taken centuries to do that. You can't do it by just ticking ANC in a ballot box. You have to go through a process of undoing all the stuff that white people did to maintain superiority in the country. It simply means that.
Thank you. Simply means it's that simple.
Okay, it's not simply. Like a lot of scholars will like shout at me. It's not simply, but you know.
In layman's term, as you say, a lot of the community is not inside UCT. A lot of the community is not inside WITS. They're not inside UJ, but they want to know. They want to understand the world that they're moving in. What are people saying? What is that? How can I learn? You know what I'm saying? So anyway, my next question is, you work a lot around black trauma. How can we collectively and individually work on our trauma, and how do you stay sane after working through this trauma yourself and being in contact? You're in contact with so much trauma. So firstly, how do we collectively and individually work through our trauma? Because we've got trauma, we've got apartheid PTSD, as you said. And I believe that we've got traumas as black people that we collectively hold, and as we collectively hold them, they seep into our families as well, and then they're now at an individual level. How do we work around them as a society, and then down to the individual?
The thing with trauma is that a lot of people don't even know that trauma is something that is passed on from generation to generation, even in the DNA. And so there's a lot of studies that have been saying that actually you can inherit PTSD from slavery, from colonialism, from apartheid, right? And so we're born with this historical baggage, with historical trauma that sits when we're born. And then you'll have your lifespan trauma, where the trauma that you will endure throughout your life, right? And then you'll have the trauma, sexual violence, because you're queer, because of this, because of that. You've got structural trauma, etc. So there's trauma that's coming from everywhere. I believe that as South Africa, we are struggling with PTSD from apartheid, and we're struggling with historical trauma from the history of this country and this continent, and we haven't dealt with it, right? And it would mean for us to face the trauma before we heal from the trauma. And I think as South Africans, we're not ready to face the trauma. In South Africa, one of the things that's really, really destructive is how social media has created a platform where people can rally and create hashtags and make jokes about like death, about, you know, very serious things. Like nothing is serious anymore. As soon as someone starts a hashtag, it goes viral and people make fun of serious things, of painful things.
Of painful things.
Right?
That's why I hate Twitter. I
don't
they
like
know,
Twitter.
They know on the channel I always say I have a Twitter handle, but I'm not using it. It's because I feel like people go on Twitter and they switch off.
Yeah.
They switch off their humanity.
Yeah.
You go there and you bash people and you laugh at people and you laugh at serious, and somebody's sharing something that looks emotional, that looks traumatic, and you little MFs go there and you laugh at this person. Really? Is this how you were raised? And I know you were not raised like that.
Yeah.
You just get on there and you lose your minds.
Yeah.
Literally. And there's nothing good about Twitter for me, you know.
Yeah.
Well, there could be, but there's just collectively there's nothing really good about it other than seeing who's dragging who, who's getting cancelled for one minor mistake they make or whatever the big mistake they make, or who's making fun of who and their traumatic situations, and you know, it just gives me trauma.
It's almost like in South Africa, I feel like we need to take like a year to say, like, tools down, let's deal with the trauma, because what happens with trauma, when you don't deal with it, you pass it on to the next generation, and that's why we're carrying trauma from generations and generations and generations. And so our duty is to heal our trauma, to face our trauma, as difficult as it is, in order for us to not have a next generation that is healing from my trauma. I don't want a daughter who's healing from my trauma that I've passed down, or a son or a non-binary child that, you know, I've passed on a molecular level, like the trauma, right? And so and it will reoccur. Like, trauma that's not healed, it's passed down, and it becomes a pathology. And so I think that the difficult thing about trauma is that to deal with trauma, we have destructive behaviors. Like I say, Terrence, around South Africans making everything a joke, right? And that's a coping mechanism because of trauma and exposure to violence, right? And so what happens now is, when we face our trauma, we're going to have to unlearn the destructive coping mechanisms, right?
Start saying, okay, we're not going to make fun of this. We're going to look at it as it is and deal with it, and then debrief after we've dealt with it, and not go straight into making it a fat joke. And what that requires is a level of change, right? When we recognize that in South Africa we have a huge issue with alcohol, right? And we can address it in nice terms. It's, you know, self-care, it's having fun, it's dealing, etc., etc., etc. It doesn't necessarily take away from the fact that we're utilizing alcohol in the ways in which it was intended for us to self-destruct by like white people, by colonialists, right? And so we then have to deal with how we deal with trauma using alcohol, and that requires a behavioral change, right? You know, you echo so much of my internal thoughts. On my way here, I passed 2 trucks delivering alcohol on a Friday afternoon. I passed one, I was in Alex Township. I passed one that was blocking the road even. And I'm like, and the person I'm with is like, it's Friday, they must deliver, you know? And I'm looking at it and I'm like, wow, I wish they were delivering school books on a Friday, you know, as much as they deliver alcohol. And then on my way here, up the road here, there was a truck again delivering alcohol. And this area is populated by students, by young people, you know what I'm saying? And
Black
you're like, oh, they bringing their weekend juice to them to pump themselves, and you know, and I that was just my internal. And for you to say we have an issue with alcohol, you're echoing that internal conversation I was having to say, wow, I'm seeing all this alcohol delivery on a Friday, wow, you know. Anyway, moving along, we can go on and on. How do you switch off? How do you work on you?
There's a difference between working on me and switching off. Switching off, I watch reality TV. I watch series. I deal so much with reality and stuff that, like, sometimes as a nation we're not ready to talk about or deal with collectively, that I just have to like just watch some people arguing or like throwing drinks in each other's faces. I mean,
that's also quite problematic.
It is is very problematic.
Yeah.
It's very problematic, and I'm
because
okay.
these shows are pitting women against each other.
Yes, of course, it's very problematic.
Yeah, but then you're also like, you know what? Let me just watch it.
You know, I can't be perfect.
I can't be perfect. I need my fix.
I need my fix.
But
yeah, but how do I work on me? I think Black feminist thought and things like intersectionality and understanding how people's different identities, right, affects them in particular kinds of ways. And how I'm not necessarily just oppressed, but I'm also an oppressor in certain ways. Like I'm oppressive to like trans women, to non-binary people. I'm oppressive to like differently abled people. You know, like, and so for me, it's always that balance of like self-reflection and as I've said, like the behavioral change and constantly
That's
working.
exactly the conversation a friend of mine had.
Yes.
Welcome on our previous video where we're like, the first way of fixing the world is that we all need to look at our privileges and what privileges are we afforded by not even working for them, by the bodies that we're born in. What privileges come with those, and start working from there to say, okay, with this body, this is what I am working with. This is what the world affords me without me even working for it. How can I make myself or those who don't have the privileges a better place for them as well? Yeah, you're quite right. So thank you for that. As a segue, by the way, let's quickly touch on this one. You're talking about reality TV. I recently did a WhatsApp status and I said, I hate trash shows like We Are Jola 99 that go out of their way to humiliate us and play on our brokenness as a people without even trying to fix us. I was saying to you, and we had a conversation off camera, and I've been saying to people, my colleagues and friends, that, you know, I understand the shows like Please Step In, where there's a psychologist who's speaking to people, who's taking through the process, and who's making the people at home see that, you know, maybe we need to go speak to someone. You know, that's sort of helping. That kind of show sort of helps. Oya Jola 99 is destructive on so many levels, that we live in a country where we have the highest level of domestic violence, and yet here is a person confronting another person for cheating on them. They're already fighting on camera. When the cameras leave, what the F happens? What the fuck is happening? Does the show even go back the next day to check if one of them is still up, if both of them are still alive even? Because it's a reality that these people could literally kill each other. In fact, let's not say kill each other. The man could kill the woman. You know, the men could kill the women in this show. And for me, that type of show, I'm very, you know, I don't want that. I don't want to watch that. I encourage people not to watch that type of thing. And because people want to switch off, they run to it.
It's irresponsible. It's very, very irresponsible. Because, you know, these shows are also racialized. Like, you don't have Jup Jup going into white suburbs and chasing down like white upper class like people who have cheated. So it's also very racialized, and it's also very anti-poor as well, right? So the rhetoric is also, they're not necessarily going to be going to like the leafy northern suburbs of Joburg and chasing down like the shit that like people who are high up in government are doing, because they're also doing these shenanigans. But they're keeping it in our communities, and also they're portraying a story, and they portraying a particular kind of person and what this person is supposed to be, right? A sexual deviant is someone who has lacked control, prone to violence. So these shows are really, really embedded within a colonial and white supremacist like imagination of black bodies. You know, so I mean, as you say, really, it's irresponsible. It is so irresponsible to have such levels of violence on TV and such triggering of violence. When South Africa has the highest levels of violence in the world for people who are not engaged in the civil war.
You know what I'm saying?
It's very dangerous.
also, you know, and as City don't watch these shows, or Sizenza Ngono or whatever. I'm saying there are shows that help. Like Gugitila. We know we have a history of people of fighting for family homes and whatever.
Yeah.
Gugitila is helping. More than exposing the wound and leaving it to fester. It is helping. There's a lady there who's a lawyer, who's a property lawyer, and she comes in and she speaks about master's office and decrees of law and this letter means that. It helps us. You know, people now have an understanding. If there were people who are watching and they have a problem now about the legalities and all of that, now they know where to go. They now know what they must go to a master's office, they must get this letter means this and that, and these people, whoever in the house must be on the letter, this one must be protected. You know what I'm saying? They walk away with, okay, I'm seeing the drama of people fighting over the house, yes, which is a bit entertaining, but I'm also walking away with the education of how to take care of the legalities of the family. Because remember, we didn't own homes. They were owned by the government and whatever. Only now is our grandmothers owning homes and our parents owning homes, and now we're fighting over these homes as the people who are remaining. You know what I'm saying? So we're not saying don't watch. There are educational ones and there are irresponsible ones. And we need to call them out. The irresponsible ones. We certainly need to call them out. One of my last questions, we have been going on, guys. This has been a very interesting conversation for me. One of my last questions is the LGBTQI plan. There we go. Yes.
So I think that the thing that's irritating with me is that I will always go to the root of it. And when we talk about the LGBTI community in South Africa, we have to go to the root. And the root is like colonialism.
Can I just stop you there?
Yes.
I've never thought about that.
I'm
so glad. I'm going to cry. I'm so glad I asked you that question because I'm getting emotional. I'm like, it's violence, it's this. And now as you're speaking and you're like, I am going to go to the root of it. And the root of it is colonialism. Oh my God. Yes, please continue.
And I was teaching on this today and, you know, I always say, when I'm teaching, I say, you know, we have in South Africa, if you speak to any African lawyer, what we call penal codes, and in certain African countries these penal codes still exist, and these were laws that criminalized homosexuality, gender diversity, sexual diversity on the continent by colonialists, right? That's our history, it's fact, right? And so this institutionalized homophobia, queerphobia, transphobia in the state, right? And so now my question is, if colonialists came into Africa and saw the need to criminalize homosexuality, what was happening in that community? It means that you had a community that was very diverse, sexually fluid, gender fluid, right? And so they imported Christianity and importing, you know, that logic that a man equals a woman and they need to be together, and there's a gender and this gender performs with pants and these ones with bras and then more nurturing, etc., right? So right now, you fast forward 500 years, you have, you know, the state not being able to or refusing to acknowledge you know, trans people, right? And affirming their gender identities because, you know, the state is transphobic in its conception, the nation state, right? Because remember I said earlier on that you can't undo 500 years of colonial logic with like a vote, right? And so these things translate when we're also talking as queer people. These things translate because, you know, if we're just gonna talk about hate crimes, we're gonna be, again, you know, in Xhosa it says kissed mine, you know, so we kissed mine, and so, and what that does is we then also fall into the trap of demonizing black cisgender men, right? Black cisgender heterosexual men. Not to say they're not violent and that they don't cahoot, but we need to have a historical context. And so my thing is, if we're gonna say what are the challenges are the recognition of their humanity, right? And the right to dignity, and the right to complexity, and the right to choose who they want to be and how they want to express themselves, you know, on a broader level. Right?
I agree with you 100% completely. As umuntu amadlozi and doing research as on izinto zesintu and as amadlozi, you're very right. 1,000 years ago, or even before colonialism came in, our people lived in communities where they respected spirituality.
Absolutely.
And they respected the spirit world. They respected umuntu onamadlozi. Right? People who had the calling. They were very respected in the community. And they believed that whatever spirit came into you, if you're a man and you were possessed by a female spirit and you carried yourself ladylike, you weren't questioned. In fact, you were respected and you were let to be.
Absolutely.
And if your spirit wanted a husband, you married another man. If you're a woman and you had Idlozilendota, that was a man and a king and whatever, people didn't dispute that. They agreed, or not even agreed, they supported you. And bagenzele imsebenzi bashadise nomfazi if idlozi lakho belifuna umfazi. You understand? So we lived in communities that thrived. Even our languages.
Absolutely.
Even our languages don't have pronouns. And they have been around forever and ever, right? And for me, today we're talking about English not having pronouns. English should not have pronouns. Our languages have had that. And they've, you know, and they've existed. And we actually, in our own languages, we don't call he or she. Or we call you by name. And that's how our people lived. And only now is English trying to catch up to say, you know, this he, she thing is a bit problematic. Let's try them, they, you know, whatever thing is. What English needs to do actually is going back to calling a person by their name. Basically, let you and name. You know what I'm saying? Regardless of gender. So you're very right. The root is that.
And I mean, you know, the issue around pronouns, I think, you know, we're trying to reinvent the wheel when actually our own knowledge is our own way of being. Remember, I said we are knowledge, we embody knowledge. And because African languages are not considered, you know, or they won't give you any social capital in Western societies. Like no one feels the need to go to African languages, study African languages and say, they're progressive in these ways and this is how we can learn how to, like, you know, not use pronouns. How do we restructure the English language? Because the reason why the English language is so obsessed with pronouns is because the people who speak and who conceptualize and culturally are vibrant is because they're people who are obsessed with pronouns. And so we then learn these languages and then we embody the pronouns.
That's so true. And honestly, I always say, I'm like, I am not interested in learning another Western language. I'm not interested in that crap. What I want to do, I want to learn Shona. It sounds like a beautiful language. I'm learning here and there, but I'd rather learn Sona, I'd rather learn Swahili, I'd rather learn Igbo as well, because that sounds like such a beautiful language. When Nigerian writers translate what they're saying, it sounds like it almost sounds for me similar to isiZulu. Because this is Zulu, you know, the poetry about, when they talk about love, we imfula hambayo ienza in, you know, and you're like, wow, that's magical. You can't say that in English. English is quite boring, actually, if we actually come to it. Our languages are quite beautiful and they're quite progressive as well in how people express themselves and all these pronoun things. So I totally agree. As a last question, right? What is ideal South Africa for you? What is ideal Africa?
Oh my
Utopia.
God.
In academic speak, it's utopia, right?
Yes.
The utopian view or whatever. What is South African utopia for you?
I hate this question.
You hate the question?
No, I know. I mean, I always get asked this question, and I'm like, why are you asking me this question? I hate this question. But because it's not practical in my head, it's just not practical, and I feel like when I say it, it's people are just rolling their eyes because they're like, what does that mean? You know, because I'm in
Please
my.
say it, because I've never heard you say it. I want to hear you say it.
Okay, so the thing is this, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's two things. I think that we never ever gonna reach utopia.
Okay.
I don't think I'm gonna reach a space where I will live in a utopian society.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And I think that revolutions will be ongoing things as new identities arise and new challenges arise and because the system reinvents itself all the time. It does this. It's a wheel. It reinvents itself. And so we're always going to be in a situation where we're always going to be in revolution, and be in revolution. But I mean, when we talk about a utopian society, I think for myself, I don't believe in the nation state. And I don't believe that 500 people who are middle class and upper class and earn almost $1 million a year are going to be the people who liberate me, right? And when I say the 500 people, you know, the people in parliament, you know what I'm saying?
I hope you caught that. I know you guys are smart, so I hope you caught that.
You know, I don't, because like the people who are in parliament are interested in maintaining the system, the nation state, because that's their job. Like if you burn parliament and you fuck the nation state, they don't have jobs, they don't have any power, right? Because there's also politicians are narcissists just in nature. They really have really bad narcissism, and so it's a power play, right? Within politics, and so politics is unable to deliver liberation because
what will deliver?
I think it's the normal people of South Africa. Like it's like domestic workers, it's like security guards, it's like people who work at KFC who are gonna suddenly think one day, I don't want to fucking live in this country. I don't want to keep doing the things that I'm doing. And so like, stay with me on this path. I think that what the ANC does, and I think that what political parties do, they say, these narcissists say, you know, give us power and we will liberate you. And I think anyone who's telling you to give up your power into their hands to liberate you has done a complete disservice, right, to you, and has done the first thing that's wrong. No one can liberate you except yourself, right? Because once you give someone power, they're gonna exercise that power according to their means. And I mean, the simple idea is to have a president who needs bodyguards when they're visiting their own people is the most crudest, perverted way in which we can see that democracy doesn't work. Why do you need bodyguard? Why do you need protection from the people who you claim to love and to protect and to stand for? And so I would want to live in a society where people live in small communities where they self-determine who they want to be.
I wanted you to get there.
And you're like, so
I'm like, okay. Small communities that self-determine. That kind of works for me.
Self-determined.
That kind of works for me. That would work. Now I go back, as you were speaking about politicians, I go back to the video I made about voting, and I'm like, Okay, but anyway, you know, it's interesting to have people that think differently from you. Because they give you a different perspective, a different nuance to how you saw things. Because I was up in the streets advocating voting and whatever. I still advocated because it's what we need to do. And for now, until we can get to that small
Yes.
community, self-determined type of state. You know, for now, let's work with what we have in the best way we can. I don't know.
I disagree with that, but I respect your opinion. But I respect your opinion.
we can disagree. We can disagree.
We can.
And we'll take it off camera.
So we're playing a game?
Yes, we're playing a game. Yes, we're definitely. Yeah. So now the game that I have for our dear Wanelisa is that we have that. I even forgot to Google what it's called, but it's something about I give you a word. And then you sing a lyric or you sing a song, and if there are 5 words here, so meaning it's 5 songs, 5 out of 5.
Okay.
Alright, so I'm gonna give you a word, you have 10 seconds to come up with lyrics, and if you don't, we move on. You've lost the point. Okay.
Pressure.
So our first word is woman. And 10, 9, 7, 6, 5.
I'm your natural woman.
Do you
That's the only word.
Who's the song by again?
I don't know.
Yeah. If you know who sings the song, or I'll look it up and put it up. Okay, cool. Thank you. 1 point to Wanelisa. Next word rather is school. 10.
Okay.
9. 8.
It's by Beyonce.
7. Yes. 6.
It's
5's a degree when you're schooling like. Yes. Beyonce, it's us who needs degrees.
Yes. Who needs a degree?
Exactly.
It's
us. Okay, I was actually thinking of that song when I wrote the word down.
Okay.
And these are words centered around you, by the way.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Our next word is black.
Oh my God. Can I do it in the neck?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, well done. I didn't see that one coming.
Okay.
That is a song from Sarafina soundtrack. Because I know, because I love me some Sarafina, and I love the soundtrack.
I love the soundtrack.
Safa Sapela, I think, is the title of the track. Okay, the next one, I love how you took it to. That was wonderful. Our next word is the word love. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6.
Since I've been loving you, boy.
Yeah.
I'm about to lose my worried mind.
Yeah. Sis can hold a note. Sis can hold a note. Whose song is that?
There's a remix by Corinne Bailey Ray.
Oh.
Yeah, it's called I don't know the song, but if you Google the lyrics of what I just said.
Yeah, okay, cool. Thank you. Oh, well, you're doing pretty well.
Okay.
She already has 4 out of 4, y'all. The next word question. I've been asking too many questions. The next word is... the next queer word. Queer word. The next queer word is body. 10, 9.
Why can I'm only thinking of like Beyonce songs. Oh my God.
9, 8.
Get me body. Get me body. Get me body. Get me body. Get me body.
Yes.
Can you be myself tonight? Can you give me body? I wanna be myself.
Well, your points were 5 out of 5. But because you brought that queen into the mix, and you brought my favorite soundtrack in the whole entire world, you are our very first guest to get 10 out of 10, 10 out of 5. Yay!
Yeah, it was really nice engaging.
Thank you.
Thank you for the conversation.
Thank you so much for affording me the opportunity to interview you. I really appreciate it. I love your work. As I've said, I've been
you.
saying that I love your work. I love the person that you are. I love what you represent. Keep doing what you need to do. It's hard work. It needs to be done. Thank you. Thank you for coming on Terrie Talks. Guys, like, comment, subscribe. This is a lengthy conversation. It's gonna go up in its length. We need these conversations, and I've realized that when I post or put up conversations like this, you guys really love them because you want to see or hear us having conversations like this. So I'm really not even gonna do a 15-minute thing here. I did say hashtag I know interesting people is going to be quite lengthy, and by far this one is gonna be quite a lengthy one because we have an icon in the building. We truly have an icon in the building. If you don't know who she is, look her up. Oh, we didn't even talk about Fees Must Fall, but it's fine. Cool.
I'd rather not.
Okay, cool, yeah.
So
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming. Like, comment, and subscribe. See you in the next video. Mwah.